Hi, I'm Chef Mark with Appliance Factory Fine Lines, and I'm here to talk to you, the person who might struggle to cook in your own home. My top 5 tips to help you in your kitchen. Now, in no particular order, here's my 5 tips that are going to help you get more comfortable in the kitchen. And tip number 1 is choosing ingredients. And we're going to talk about staple ingredients. A staple is something that you should always have in your kitchen, and not only have in your kitchen, but have out, ready, on the countertop, ready to go. So my dry staple ingredients, things that I have on my countertop right next to my stove: salt, pepper, my cooking fats, and choose a couple that you love and just stick to them. I like extra virgin olive oil for flavor, and then I have pure oil for high temperature cooking like sauteing. And then maybe a couple of vinegars, balsamic vinegar, maybe you like to cook with butter. Whatever it is, whatever your favorite ingredients, choose 5 or 6 of them, keep it simple, and have them out and ready to go all the time. Now, I also have some fresh staple ingredients, things that I need to shop for. And here I've got onion, maybe garlic. Garlic is a nice staple. Some lemons, and I like fresh herbs. And the key to your fresh staple ingredients are they need to be things that are sturdy. That means that they can sit in your refrigerator for 7, 10 days, maybe even 2 weeks without spoiling. So onions certainly have a long shelf life, as do lemons. I find that a lemon stored properly, washed, cleaned, dried, and set in your produce bin ready to use, easily 7, 10 days, if not 2 weeks. And then when it comes to things like fresh herbs, I like to find herbs that are woody. So I have rosemary, thyme, and sage. All of these, being a woody herb, are going to hold up a lot better than soft herbs like basil or cilantro. Although delicious, and I love cooking with them, I don't keep them in my refrigerator all the time because I don't want them to spoil. I don't want to waste anything. Now, when it comes to produce, I like to just walk around the grocery store, find things that either look great and are irresistible, or maybe they're on sale. I found these yellow squash, and they were on sale because they're not in perfect shape, but they're certainly fresh enough for my dinner tonight. So I went ahead and grabbed a couple of these along with a pepper. Now, how much should I buy? Let's talk about volume as far as the amount of ingredients needed. A lot of recipes are made for 4 people, and when you double them, let's say you're doubling them for a larger dinner, or maybe you want leftovers, the ratios get thrown off. So whenever I'm shopping for things like produce, I try to shop based on volume. So I figured 1 zucchini for every 2 people. I've got 2 zucchinis. That's enough easily for 4 people. If I double the recipe, do I need 8 of these? That doesn't quite feel right. Maybe just 6. I'm going to trust my judgment on that. 1 pepper is probably more than enough for 4 people. So what I don't use, I'm going to put in a Ziploc bag or a container and save for my next meal. And then things like green beans. I love cooking with green beans, but how much should I buy? Well, it's just really simple. When I'm in the grocery store, I just kind of decide, oh, I think this amount is the portion for every person. I find if you go like that, make an A-OK, that's typically about the size of a portion, whether it's green beans or pasta or asparagus, that you need for every person. And I just simply go through, and if I'm cooking for 4 people, I grab 4 bundles like this. If I'm cooking for 6 or 8 people, I just increase the volume. That's what I mean by cooking volumetrically. I think that's really an important tip. Don't be afraid to buy too much. Prep it, but not use it. Just have it in the refrigerator, ready to go for your next recipe. So we're going to move on to some knife skills. And what I'm doing here is I'm just going to make dinner. I don't have a recipe and I don't really have a plan. I just went through my refrigerator, grabbed a couple of ingredients, went to the grocery store, grabbed a couple of things that look great. I'm going to rely on my experience. I'm going to rely on my staple ingredients to help me create what I think is going to be a delicious dinner. All right, that being said, let's get started. One of my key tips is to keep it simple. 5 ingredients or less when you're cooking. Commit a recipe to memory. So what I recommend is if you find a recipe and you know you'll love it, after you've made it once or twice, it's time to put the recipe book down and just cook, because you can trust yourself. You know you've got this. But when it comes to creating food and really working off the book, it's about keeping it simple. 5 ingredients and less doesn't mean 5 ingredients total. It means, for me, 5 ingredients that aren't your staples. So I'm not going to count salt, pepper, and oil, which are staple ingredients required to cook virtually any dinner. That just leaves me my main ingredients. In this case, I'm just going to do some peppers, my yellow squash. I'm going to save those green beans for my next meal. I just bought them because they looked great. I've got some chicken breasts. They looked great, so I went ahead and picked these up. And then here I have some onions and my lemon and fresh herbs. These are also staples. And because they're staples, I'm not going to count those in the ingredient count. So yeah, although it might be more than 5 ingredients total, I'm really only using 3 unique ingredients outside of my pantry, outside of my staple ingredients. So that's about as simple as you can get, 3 main ingredients. All right, as I've been chatting with you, I've been preheating my pan. I have a good old-fashioned large saute pan. It's stainless steel, and it's not a non-stick pan, but I don't have to worry about things sticking as long as I preheat my pan. So I'm going to preheat my pan with no oil in it. A clean pan that has nothing in it won't burn. You don't have to worry about it. And when we add our oil, we're ready to start cooking. We can add our next ingredient immediately. We don't have to wait for the oil to preheat. We would if we're deep frying. That takes a while for the oil to come up to temperature. But for sauteing, that oil heats up virtually instantly. Okay, so I have some chicken breasts here. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to do some salt and some pepper. That's the basis of all great flavor development. I'm using white pepper only because I just want to have that nice clean look. And then, once again, I have 2 oils that I like to use, but I'm going to be using just pure olive oil, which is much more heat resistant, less likely to burn. And how do I know my pan's hot enough? I can just feel the heat radiating out. That's ready to go. And when I'm sauteing, it's always a thin veneer just to barely cover the bottom of the pan. That's the right amount of oil every time. You don't need to measure that. You can just trust. Small amount of oil, it's always easy to add more if you need it. But for this sake, I'm going to add just enough to cover the bottom of the pan. All right, here we go. I'm going to get the chicken into my pan. You hear that sizzle? That means we did it right. It means we got a perfect preheat. What I love about cooking on induction is if it's a little on the cool side, which it is, I wish I had a little bit more heat down here, I can just kind of kick it up and it's pretty much instantly as hot as I need it. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sear my chicken right in the pan. It's also going to go into the oven, so I got my oven ready to go. It's preheated and it's nice and hot. That technique is called pan roasting. Again, you might see in a recipe 2 or 3 paragraphs on how to pan roast. And what I like to do when I have a recipe like that is I just draw a bracket, I read the entire recipe, and then I identify the cooking method. Oh, they want me to saute and pan roast, and I just write that down, right in the book. And that way, I know I'm getting right to the heart of the technique. I think you'll find that's a lot easier when you're learning how to cook. All right, we're gonna get a beautiful sear on these chicken breasts. I don't wanna flip this too much. What I wanna do is take the skin side, the side that is nice and smooth, the side that once had the skin on it, and that's going to go down in the pan first. What that's going to do is allow the presentation side, the side that I'm going to look at while I'm eating, to have the nice color. When I flip it over onto the non-presentation side, or the side that once was facing the breast, because that's not as attractive, I don't need to worry about having that side be golden brown. We only need to brown one side. Easy. Golden brown one side, flip it over, and we're going to finish cooking it. Okay. Let me take a look here. Great. See how we're not sticking? It's sticking just a touch, but that's just because it hasn't seared. As it sears, the proteins will kind of walk themselves away from the pan naturally, giving us that nice kind of non-stick feel for any pan. You know, you preheat your pan, I guarantee you're not going to stick. And to an added benefit of that, we're not going to splatter. If you have cold protein, cold chicken, and cold oil on the pan, when you turn it on, as that chicken heats up and starts to create steam, that moisture is going to hit the oil and you're going to have splatter everywhere. You can see I have just the smallest amount of splatter, but it's nothing crazy. Certainly not enough to need a splatter guard. Okay. We're looking for that nice golden brown color, and I think we're there. Oh, that looks great. Okay. It's sticking a little bit, but no big deal. Right? Look at that beautiful color. I'm going to let this sear just for a moment, then I'm going to toss it in the oven to finish cooking. In the meantime, let's do some chopping. Okay, we've been through 4 of my 5 main tips. Let's review. First, we found a recipe that's simple, just a few ingredients. We've also identified our staple ingredients. things that we're going to have on our counter that we're going to use every day are just items that we have in the refrigerator that we know they're there. They're just reliable. We found a recipe that is well practiced, that we found something that we've memorized and that we're able to hone and make it perfect. And finally, when it comes to shopping, we just shopped with ratios or with volume. We just trusting our senses. We're buying the right amount of volume of food for the recipe. So while our chicken is in the oven, let's do our knife skills. That's another just kind of fine tip, which is you can kind of do your prep work while things are cooking. That way you can reduce the amount of time. I hear all the time, oh my gosh, cooking takes so long. But if you take a recipe and you stack it on top of each other, while my chicken's roasting, I'll do my knife skills. While my sauce is reducing, I'll do my dishes. Be surprised at how quickly this can go. All you really need is one great knife. You know, if you have a knife block full of knives, fantastic. But find a large knife that is sharp and that you maintain, and you use it for virtually everything. I use this knife for probably 95% of all tasks in the kitchen, and I like to make sure it's sharp. I've got my honing steel. I'm just going to run my knife over the honing steel a few times. That keeps the blade sharp. It doesn't sharpen it in its own right, but maintains that blade. Now we're ready to go. When it comes to knife skills, I recommend taking a class. There's a lot of local culinary schools that offer knife skills, and I think that's the most important cooking class anybody can take. No matter if you love to cook or you hate it and it's just a chore, I think you'll be surprised if you have good knife skills how much easier your time is in the kitchen, and also it's much safer as well. All right, let me show you a few knife skills. All right, when I'm holding my knife, I hold the knife with the pinch grip, so I pinch the blade with 2 fingers and 3 fingers underneath with my middle finger against the back of the knife. This is called the pinch grip. This is going to give you a considerable amount of control. See how my knife is basically enveloped by my hand? That's correct. I see this a lot, the finger, and this will feel comfortable, but the problem is that you end up pushing so hard on this finger that the knife wants to pop out on you, and that's when it feels like you're going to cut yourself. It's a subtle difference, but try it at home. I think you'll be surprised at how much more control you have. All right, so these zucchini here, or these yellow squash, what I'm going to do is cut off both sides. And to work quickly, I just cut them off together. Now, I find with both zucchini and yellow squash that the seeds on the inside offer quite a bit of moisture into the sauce, and I want to keep this kind of dry. When I say sauce, I mean everything, the veggies that I'm sauteing along with my chicken. I'm going to make sure they're nice and wet and have good flavor. So what I'm going to do here is just kind of pull the seeds out, just real easy. I'm just going to do little, what I call ballerina fingers on the top, and I'm just going to zip that seed pouch out, which doesn't offer much in the way of flavor. The flavor is really in kind of the skin and the meat of my veggie here. Okay, and with just a few moments, I can zip those out. And I usually do this on virtually any vegetable I'm doing. I like to do this very much so when I'm grilling these. I just grill them like this so that they don't fall through the grill. And again, they maintain a nice dry flavor. And then I'm just going to chop these. And I'm just going to line these up. That's a little bit too much for me to cut, so I'm just going to split them into 2. And it's a nice forward rocking motion. And you can see I'm not working quickly, but by working smoothly and having good knife skills, I can cut these 2 zucchini in just a few moments. If you hand cut everything, I think you'll find that your food comes out better because you have so much more control over the sizes, so things cook very evenly. But also, the added benefit to cutting things by hand is that you end up with really precise cuts. They're not rough, so things hold up better, both in your refrigerator or when you're cooking them. They taste fresh. The other thing I'm doing is I'm using my cutting board as kind of my prep station here. I'm not pulling out a ton of bowls to put everything in, just because that adds quite a bit more dishes. So I'm making little piles here. I have my trash pile, I've got my save for later pile, I've got my vegetables. I know I'm going to want some lemon juice, so I'm just going to cut one of these in half. And finally, some fresh herbs. I think I want to do, I think lemon and thyme. I know that sounds delicious together. So I'm just going to take my time. I'm going to take a couple nice bundles, and I'm just going to throw them in just like this, right into the saute pan when I'm finishing my dish. I'm going to let the flavor come out, and then I'll pull them out later. No need to pull out every little leaf, unless you want to. But I don't know. I like to eat sooner than later, so I'm just going to add them just like that. There we go. Here's all my mise en place. I've put in place everything I need to finish our entree. So let me go grab the chicken. We'll put some finishing touches on dinner. I'm preheating my pan, getting it back up to temperature, but now I got to be careful because I have some ingredients in the pan, so I just can't preheat it indefinitely. I really need to keep a close eye on this. I'm going to add a little bit more of my high temperature oil. Great. Nice thin veneer of oil. Again, whenever we're sauteing, a thin veneer is always the right amount. And one of the key tips, it's easier to add more than it is to take away. We don't want our food to be greasy. I know that these vegetables are going to absorb some of that oil, but we really just need enough fat for transfer of heat and flavor. Okay, a little pro tip. I'm just going to pull my cutting board off the edge, and then when I go to add my ingredients, I like to bring my pan right to my cutting board and just kind of shovel them in there. I'm going to start with the onions, and again, the reason for that is I feel like the onions can cook for a long time. They're not as refreshing if they're served raw, so I want to cook them, and I can cook them for a long time or a short time. It doesn't really matter, but I want to get them started now. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. I learned a few years ago that if you add a little salt when you're cooking onions, it helps move them along. It pulls out some of the moisture and helps them cook. Okay. If you love to stir, wooden spoon's a good choice for this. I like a wooden spoon, that way if I'm using either a non-stick pan or a conventional stainless steel pan, either way I'm good to go. Once I get a little temperature into this, I can also flip. And keep in mind when you're flipping, that's really just having the food kind of cascading back towards you. So I get the food to the edge of the pan and then just give it a tuck. Right? It's a little easier when there's good heat in the pan and there's a lot of volume. So as I add more ingredients and I start to get a little bit more heat in the pan, I think you'll see the flipping is a little easier. Okay, am I stirring constantly? No, these can kind of relax. They can just cook very slowly and help develop flavor. I mentioned throwing my herbs in. There you go. I'm going to pull that out later, but I know I'm going to get great flavor from my thyme. And as I'm cooking, I guess I'm making lemon thyme chicken with fresh summer vegetables. Okay. A recipe like this, it's okay if it's different every time. We don't need to repeat exactly the same recipe every single time. That's important for restaurants. Consistency is a hallmark of any great restaurant. But when you're cooking at home, mix it up a little bit. You know, just try different things, and I think you'll find that's how you learn how to cook. I'm going to get my zucchini, my yellow squash right into the pan. Okay. Oop, that's still a little hot. I had to be careful there. Okay. There we go. I'm getting that nice shake. Great. And what's happening here is that good stuff, that flavor on the bottom of the pan, kind of wanting to stick a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and get my red pepper right into my pan as well, because I want to get my lemon in there a little sooner than later, just to deglaze. Deglaze being releasing that beautiful flavor in the bottom of the pan. Okay, what I'm looking for here is I want that transfer of flavor and heat into the pan, so the yellow squash is absorbing that oil and it's starting to kind of let go some of its flavor, the moisture that's naturally present in that. I love the color. Certainly it's an attractive color. And I think I'm ready for my lemon. You can see how quickly this is going. I've got good heat in this pan. And what this lemon's going to do is it's going to prevent the bottom of the pan from burning all that extra flavor in there. So I'm going to get, I think just the juice of 2 lemons is going to do the trick. If you love garlic, you know I love to add garlic a little later in the cooking process so it doesn't burn. If you ever burn your garlic, just start over. New pan, new oil. There's no way to mask that burnt flavor. Okay. That's looking great. It's just kind of cooking down. It's making a little bit of some sauce. I'm going to get the chicken back in here along with any of the juice that formed in the pan. And we are almost ready for dinner. Now, I've got a bonus recipe I want to share with you, so stay tuned. I want to make a complete meal, so I'm going to use some barley that I had left over from a stew I made earlier in the week. I'm going to heat this up to enhance our entree. And I'm going to subscribe to the same 5 lessons that we've been talking about. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to utilize some knife skills, just a couple of ingredients, some staples. Let's see what we can come up with. First off, cooking fat. I'm going to use extra virgin olive oil because I don't need high heat. I just want to get some temperature into this. It's cooked already. Ratio cooking. This is a 2-to-1 ratio. 2 parts water to 1 part barley. I just did this in my rice cooker. I'm just going to heat this up. A scoop or 2. Again, kind of volume cooking. That's 1 portion. That's 2 portions. 3 and 4. Maybe 1 more just for good luck. Just going to heat this up with a little bit of oil. Again, I don't need to cook it. I just need to get some temperature in it. And I'm going to flavor it with some of my staples. So here's one of my staples. A little salt, a little rosemary, and a touch of garlic. Garlic is a great fresh staple because it's something that can sit on your counter and really last for a long time. You see I just twist the skin off. I'm just going to rough chop both of these. This is the mincing motion right here. I'm going to mince this along with my garlic, and I'm just going to add this for flavor and just kind of a nice little interesting side. A lot of those grains, rice, they're almost always 2-to-1 ratio. I kind of measure my liquid. I know some people will do the finger test where you run the water up to the first knuckle. That's great. If that's how you measure your rice, fantastic. I actually haven't had much success with that. So I kind of prefer to measure it out. And it's because it's a ratio of any vessel. So it could be 2 coffee cups of water to 1 coffee cup of barley. Put it in a pot or put it in your rice cooker and you're good to go. I'm just going to stir this around together. I'm going to add a little bit more of extra virgin olive oil because this offers a lot of flavor to my barley. And I'm going to just call this a warm barley herb salad. I can smell the garlic. The garlic's nice and aromatic and it smells great. And then the final touch, I'm going to present this on a plate so that it looks beautiful. So when it's dinner time, it's a special occasion. So let's give that a go. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do a little classic plate presentation. I'm just going to set some barley right in the middle of the plate. I'm not looking for too precise. I just want to make this simple so that when it's dinner time, it feels like an occasion. I love plating my food come dinner time. I think that it's just really a simple way to make dinner a special occasion. Here's one of our chicken breasts. Here's my pan with all of our beautiful ingredients. Okay, and like I said, the vegetables end up kind of being the sauce. So since I added that small amount of water, I'm able to use the liquid that's come out to baste the chicken, transferring all that beautiful flavor. Look at that, I even got one of those pieces of thyme on there as a little garnish, just showing what the ingredients I cooked with are. And really, that's about as simple as it needs to be. I think that's still much more of a special occasion than just maybe serving food out of the pan. This way, we're able to cook quickly with a minimal amount of ingredients, with minimal amount of headache finding the perfect recipe. It really makes for a special occasion. It smells delicious, and I can't wait to eat this. This is Chef Mark with Appliance Factory Fine Lines. Thanks for tuning in.